Greetings. Good morning. Welcome back to the Philippines and to another video. Today we're going to be talking about minidlna, or ReadyMedia as it's called over on the SourceForge website. We're going to be using it to convert a simple file server into a simple media server for your home personal network. So fairly simple and straightforward. I mean, it really is, but we're not going to leave it at that. We're going to talk about minidlna in some detail, what you get, some of the folders, some of the directories, some of the files, their purpose in life, because like I say, it's easy to set up. It does have some interesting capabilities. It's not Plex or Jellyfin or Kodi. If you're looking for something more complex, this is probably not it, but if you want something easy and quick to set up, I mean, technically you could throw this on your laptop with your media files, and if you say go someplace where they have like a smart TV, you could immediately play your media files on that smart TV, and we'll get into that. So like I say, it is a simple media server. It's not complicated. It's not for everybody, but it does have its place, so we're going to cover it here. So let's get to it. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the DLNA Organization. We're going to discuss the actual program, minidlna. If you look at the, like I say, if you look at the SourceForge site, it's ReadyMedia. Even though most archives, most repositories for Linux distributions still listed as minidlna. Then we're going to jump over and take a look at, since we're installing this on Debian 12, we're going to take a look at what Debian 12 pages have to say about it. We'll look at the initial minidlna Debian page. We'll look at the page for the packages, and we're going to look at the package contents. Then we're going to load it onto a system, and after we do that, we're going to poke around a little bit and see what folders, what directories, what files are there. And we're going to discuss a little bit about making it work. I mean, actually, to make it work is pretty simple and straightforward. So if that's the part you're interested in, you're probably going to want to jump more close to the end of the video where we actually talk about this. This is just some detail work. It should, well, for me anyways, it helps me understand the program a little better and what I'm trying to do with it. And like I say, this is not a program that's going to compete with the likes of Kodi or Plex or Jellyfin or even Subsonic, but for something quick and easy to put together, yeah, it's got a place. So we're going to discuss it here. All right, let's get down to it. Let's get down and dirty. Yeah. All right, our first stop is not the minidlna pages, but the DLNA website, or the wiki for it anyways. DLNA stands for Digital Living Network Alliance. This was a group that it existed from around 2003 to about 2017 when they disbanded. The reason for getting together was to create some standards for streaming video and audio, and well, basically standards for streaming media across the network. They did this, they developed a standard. They didn't actually develop any software, but that's another story. Well, it's not another story, it's just they didn't do it. They just developed the standards, and the standards are still out there. Like I say, in 2017, they consider themselves mission complete. The standards and certifications they developed are now administered by SpireSpark International. Like I say, if you're really interested in their history, a wiki page goes into a lot of detail, talks about some of their certifications. It's worth giving it a look. Okay, the next place we want to go look is the minidlna SourceForge page, or as it states on the SourceForge page, the ReadyMedia, formerly known as minidlna. Again, I stated earlier, if you look for this in the repository, Arch Linux, Debian, Ubuntu, it's probably still going to be listed as minidlna. Maybe at some point they'll call it ReadyMedia. Anyways, The mini DLNA program was actually developed by Netgear. I'm going to tell you right now, there's not a lot of information on the SourceForge page, but yeah, it was originally developed by Netgear for their ReadyNAS product line. It's now maintained separately. It's supposed to meet the DLNA standards, and it appears to from all my testing. This SourceForge page is currently maintained by Justin Muggard. And the last actual update was released in 2023, so can't be considered dead software as people are still doing updates mainly, though I think these are bug fixes. There are suggestions for additions to this program, but I think the current maintainer considers it feature complete. I may be wrong there, but it looks like the last several updates were mainly bug fixes and stuff under the hood. So you can go check out the SourceForge page, but like I say, there's not a lot of information there. But you can also download and compile the latest version of the program. Another underwhelming page for mini DLNA is the Debian mini DLNA page hosted on Debian.org. It tells you how to install it. There's no GUI configuration note, and then it lists a few of the files that you can configure. And actually, as we'll find out later when we look at this a little closely, this page, it's a little out of date. Because some of their recommendations are not, well, they're for System 5 and not for System D. 2019 was the last time this page was updated. Anyway, there is some troubleshooting information on this page that may be worth looking at. So, it's out there. If you actually go to the Debian page for the package download, we can see it's available in Bookworm. Well, it was available in Bullseye and Buster, but Bookworm looks like a version is 1.30. There's no backport. Current testing, Trixie looks like 1.3.3, which actually is the latest version. So, latest version's in Trixie. A slightly older version is in Bookworm. We're going to use the one in Bookworm since we're installing this on a Debian 12 system. If we go to the actual package information, it says mini DLNA, aka ReadyDLNA. Okay, so the name's changing slowly but surely. Again, it lists as a simple, lightweight alternative to Mediatome that has fewer features. I forgot to mention Mediatome, but yeah, this does have fewer features, and I think it does a similar thing. If we scroll down the page, we can look at the dependencies, and we're actually going to talk about these because nobody ever talks about dependencies, but we'll talk about these in a little bit. And then if you go all the way to the bottom of the page, you can actually pull up a list of files that are in the archive. So if we go to the list of packages page, we can see our package list here. Again, this looks like a lot, but it's not really a lot. The size of this package is relatively small. It's some of the dependencies that it's going to get loaded that are large, but we're going to discuss the stuff you need to be concerned about here. Well, you don't need to be concerned about it, but you might like to know because it has to deal with configuration. But in a little bit, we're going to talk about that before we actually get to the install. So yeah, let's move on to more discussion. And like I said, if you want to actually do the install, you're going to have to jump to the end of this video. So let's ask the question, what is mini DLNA or ReadyMedia? Boy, I hope they actually fix this name thing soon. It's hard saying both. So we've got a short little graphic here which kind of lays out what's going on with mini DLNA at a higher level. I hope you don't mind, but I'm just going to call it mini DLNA for the rest of this video, even though probably ReadyMedia would be simpler, but that's what the package is called. Anyway, when we're looking at what's going on here, this is a daemon. It's a program that runs in the background and is always working. You just don't see it in the foreground. So it's there, it's running, it's doing its thing. It basically has three basic functions. So there are basically three functions to a mini DLNA. First, access your media storage pool. Second, track the contents of your media storage pool in a local database, which it creates. And then third function is serve the contents of your storage pool to any DLNA UPnP, it's another term in there, universal plug and play clients that may be out on your network. And this is pretty much automatic. Well, at least on my Samsung TVs, it was pretty much automatic. minidlna does not have any transcoding functionality built into it, so the clients must understand the media files being served, or they're not going to be able to play them. Audio files, pictures, this isn't a big deal. Video files, I've found, can be a little tricky depending on what smart device you're using, because a lot of smart devices do not play all the available video formats, which by comparison to audio and pictures is huge. Generally, there's two ways this is implemented on a device. So for example, my Samsung Smart TV, it's executed as a pre-installed application. So it's actually there, it automatically comes up when it detects a DLNA compatible client on your network. It shows automatically in the list of applications. The other way is through a standalone application. For example, VLC can access DLNA media, and it can play it. Some other applications can too, but again, the two ways is it's either a part of the OS on your smart device or it's a standalone application. Man, I notice that sun's coming up earlier and earlier in the morning. Whew. So what gets installed when you put in a mini DLNA package? Well, first thing, your etc. default mini DLNA, which is actually a holdover from System 5. You also get etc. init D mini DLNA. We're going to look at these files, and then the actual configuration file, which is one of the files you might have to mess with. There's another one, is in etc mini DLNA.config. The actual systemd service is found in the lib systemd system mini DLNA service. The actual binaries in user sbin, and then there's some documentation in user share documentation. There's some translations in user share local LC messages. These are the various languages that can be displayed in, like Russian, English, French, Japanese, whatever. That's what's in that folder. And then we've got our man pages, 2 man pages actually. Okay, let's take a look at the dependencies. And there are a few. Init system helpers, if you're running a Debian system, this is part of the init system, it's already installed. So one down. Add user, again, you're running a Debian system, this one's already installed. I'm not sure about Arch, I'd have to check on that. And those are the two systems I tend to work with the most. But yeah, it's already installed. Could be add user. There's also another program called user add, which is probably installed there. Then the libav format. Again, I said mini DLNA does no transcoding, but it needs to be able to recognize media files, so it needs various libraries for the different types of media. So we're going to see a bunch of those as dependencies. And we got the libav utility 57, same reasoning here. This just helps mini DLNA recognize the types of media that it finds in the folders and report them correctly to the client device. libc6, that's a standard C library, again using Debian and even using Arch. This is probably already installed. libexif, again, media file types. libflac, another media type. libjpeg, another media type. libog, another media type. libsqlite. Remember I said that mini DLNA keeps the database? Well, this is the database it uses, SQLite. libvorbis, another media codec. And LSB based is a transitional script for init functionality, and on some systems it might already be installed. I don't believe it is installed by default on Debian though, but it will be installed if you load minidlna. All right, that was rather quick, I guess. Okay, now that we've got all that out of the way, let's get to the stuff we're all here for. So, as usual, when using any Linux distribution, before installing your media or your program, you want to do an apt update and an apt install. Has to be done as root, so you need sudo su or root access. Once your system's up to date, we can jump ahead and we can do I'm going to assume we're a normal user here, so I'm going to be saying sudo, even though you could be root and not need it, or you could have su'd into the root account. But sudo apt install minidlna. You're going to see a list of the dependencies, and this should take approximately, depending on what was on your system, you should probably add about 370 megabytes to whatever your storage volume is. You want to continue? Yes. And then we just wait for the install to finish. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check using system control whether the minidlna service is running or not. And yes, it is. This is Debian. It was installed. It was enabled. So I'm going to kill it. So sudo system control stop minidlna. Why? Because I'm going to go play with the configuration files. Let's just double check and make sure that it's inactive, and it is. So first place let's look is the sbin folder where we can see the actual binary. This is the heart and soul of minidlna. Let's look at it English, or human readable, not English. These 317 kilobytes RKB. We get that by just adding the H option to the ls command. Now let's look at the man pages. There's two of them. The first one's just minidlna, and this covers how you launch the program, most of the command line options. They're all listed here. The other man page is the config man page, which is minidlna.config. And this is options for the configuration file. Some of these are similar to the options for launching for the command line. Some are a little different, but they're related. You can specify where this configuration file is located too. Next, we want to take a look at the libsystemd system folder. This is where the systemd service file is located. If you're going to change users, this is where you need to do it. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we look at another file, but the actual command to run minidlna is in this file also. Down towards the bottom there's a lot of configuration options that come from the command line, -f, -p, -s. You can look those up in the man page. But unless you change it, this is a general way it gets launched. Let's take a quick look at the config file itself. This is where you make a lot of other changes. One thing, when you look through this config file, you're going to see a lot of secondary directories that have been defined. We'll take a look at this a little more later, but just to let you know, there are additional directories you may need to change if you actually swap users. can also look at the log rotate file, which is in the etc directory. Log rotate.d. This is a pretty small file. Basically, after a certain amount of time, it rotates the logs. So if you have a problem with your disk filling up after you start using this might be a place to look. And then there's the init.d file for minidlna. This is a script. You'll notice this does stuff like start, stop, status, restart, force reload, and rotate when you use the system control command. These are all controlled from this file here. And let's look at this default file. That's a default minidlna. Now, if you read right at the top, it says, warning, this file is used for compatibility with System 5 init only. If you are using System D, Debian default, which it is, please overwrite minidl services unit instead of modifying these variables. So that is where we need to do our modifications, not in this file here. I bring this up because a lot of instructions tell you to modify this file, and you get a little frustrated when it doesn't work. Or at least it doesn't work as you expected it to work. You notice everything in here is commented out. But there are some Linux systems that still do use System 5, so you do need this file present. You'll probably know it if you're using System 5 or System D. And like I say, if it's a default Debian install, you're using System D. So when you install minidlna, a few things happen under the hood. Especially the first time it runs, you'll note right here, we have a minidlna user that's been created. It's a no login user, but it's been created. It's also below 1,000, so this is not a user. It's a system user. And you can see we've got a minidlna group that's also been created. So let's take a quick look at our configuration file. It looks complicated, but I mean, there's not a lot. We're going to hit this a little bit. There's not a lot you need to change unless you're really changing your user. We look in variable libs, we're going to see a minidlna folder created, owned by root. And if we look in variable catch, we're going to see another minidlna folder, but this one's actually owned by minidlna. Minidlna is the group, and by default, this is where it's going to catch things like artwork and stuff. Here you can find in the variable logs folder, it's also owned by minidlna. It was created on your first run. So those are just some extra files and folders that were created that didn't show up in the install, or at least not what's there, but they were created the first time the system init ran. So yeah, when we look more at more detail inside the config file, you can see where these folders come from and why you need to know they're there. All right. Let's look at our config file. So right here, this is where we set our media directory, and you'll notice right now it's set for variable lib minidlna. We're going to comment that out since our media, and we've only got audio files, so we're going to use the A as per the instructions above, is located in server media center music. Spell right, okay. And we're going to go ahead and save that. Then we can go ahead and restart our media server. We get a small warning here because we changed a config file. Nothing to really worry about. Let's just go ahead and reboot. And everything should be fine, right? Right. Okay, well now we reboot, we can look at our service and everything looks good. You get this other warning at the bottom. If you actually rerun this as root, that warning will go away. And we're in we're in the run folder, which is where the minidlna run information stored here. So yeah. All right, let's do a TV test here. This is a Samsung Smart TV. We're going to go over to source, and you'll notice in the source this is automatically shown up. I've not done anything. We have our Athena mini DLNA with a little Debian logo on there. We can click on it. Since we've only got music, we can see that it actually can access our music files and play them. So yeah, real simple. Once it's running, it automatically picked up by the smart TV. So not much more to say there. It works, and it works good. You don't have a lot of fancy search features like you do in some other programs, but it is connected to the media server and it can stream the media files. All right, next thing we want to do is a VLC test where we can find, there it is. And yeah, we're at our same media file. We've only got audio files so far, and we can actually play them in VLC, which is a standalone third-party type application. So yeah, that works also, and that was set up pretty much automatically. We didn't have to do anything once we got the server running and pointed to the correct folder. And that's about it for what we wanted to do in this video. I mean, I had a lot of early information there. I don't know how much of it is actually helpful, but it's kind of interesting looking through some of these packages and what's been done. But again, basically, if you're not changing users using a minidlna, then you just have to point it to the right directory, and the right directory has to be readable by the minidlna user. If you do change users, you're going to have to recreate your, or relabel, rebrand, whatever you want to call it, your database folder, your artwork folder, a lot of your other folders. You can see them all in the config file. Those are the default ones that are minidlna user accessible only, because minidlna is not a login user. If you're using a regular user, you will not be able to get into those folders. So if you're going to change users, you got to change all those folders too. So that's just for information. I didn't change users. I just pointed it to my MediaMan user folder where all my media is, but that's world readable, so minidlna did not have a problem serving files from there since it's not trying to write anything. All right, I think that's about it for this video. Let's get this thing wrapped up and edited, packaged, and uploaded. And we'll see you all again next time, okay? Looks like it's going to be a hot day here today.